Hello, and welcome to Modern Day Mystic with me, Janine. I am your host. I'm a medium, and I just made this cool hood, so I am wearing it. Today, our topic is spiritual activism. I was going to do all sorts of other things, but I think right now it's really pertinent to talk about the aspect of being someone who is spiritual in times like right now, where there's injustice right in your face all the time. And to talk about really what that looks like on a spiritual level, what you can do, and also what might be really harmful that happens. As always, everything I'm doing is I'm sharing. I am not a guru. I don't want to be a guru. You shouldn't want me to be a guru. You should want perspective. And to be honest with you, anybody who wants to be a guru, anyone who says this is the way it is, this is the truth, this is the blah 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 blah, you probably want to question. You always need to have your own agency, and that is our number one: spiritual activism. Spiritual activism requires you to be in your own agency, not to just follow because someone says you should, or because someone says that's the holy way, or that's this way. In fact, if we don't look at what happens, and it doesn't matter if it's a religion, if it's a spirituality, if it's any of those things, if you are not in your agency, guess what? You can be pretty damn deeply manipulated and cultified. It happens. Just to give another base is, if you're living in the country I am right now, it's the USA. If you're living here, there's a pretty good chance that you've been cultified in more ways than you kind of think so, no matter how much agency you have. And it's just something just to say, let me sit there and think about that for a minute. The other piece that I want to make sure that you know, especially if you're watching this, when I do talk about some of these spiritual activism ways, what I want to make clear is it's never to make you blind or numb to what's going on. If you're on my channel, you probably know me a little bit. If not, hi and welcome. I'm a medium, or that's what people call me. I'm a medium. I like the idea of modern day mystic just because my path, even though I give readings, even though I have all sorts of intuitiveness in me, is really more tuned into the spiritual path of transformation and love and all that stuff in a really practical way. And I encourage the tension or the hold between magic, and it's so amazing, and mystical experiences, and the skepticism and pragmatic and scientific. I like these two things. I feel like it gives us a balance and a sojourning, right? So let me go back to spiritual activism. So when we go into this, as I said, here's the base. The base is, if you're going to be in this and wanting to really understand the spiritual, the energetic component to being part of a human rights movement, to being part of unveiling a collective and within understanding that we are seriously all connected. It doesn't take you away from doing practical things, like calling your representatives, like showing up for people, speaking out. It actually is going to make you do those things a little bit more probably, but you cannot just sit at home and go, oh, I want the world to be at peace. and raise the vibrations. Let's raise the vibrations. Come on. No, we don't do this bullshit. Okay? While it is important to raise vibrations, while there is a sense of putting love and joy out, and that does vibrate, but it only does if it's truly authentic, truthful, and you're doing your work. You cannot transform a world without being transformed. It's kind of the simplest thing. So if your eyes aren't being consistently opened, if your understanding and ability to see and witness what is not okay, because without that witness, how can you make it better? You can't. You can't just bypass the hard parts for the good parts, which is really what modern day spirituality really likes. Even in religion, there's this I'm just gonna do this. There's this piece where people think, especially with readings, like, oh, like if you can be intuitive, like you get to bypass the uncomfortable. The exact opposite will happen. What ends up happening is you see more truth. And the more truth you see, the more you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is bigger than I thought. Oh, wait a minute, my whole world is falling apart. Oh, wait a minute, I can't sit in the safety of what once was. Oh, wait a minute. That should be your so the spiritual activism ends up truly transforming you. Without your transformation, quite literally, can't be in the bigger transformation. The biggest practice that I say kind of reveals this, please look it up, is the Ho'oponopono practice of Hawaii. And you should just look up Ho'oponopono and the story of, there is this psychiatrist, I believe, in the prisons in Hawaii. And you should just look up his story. But the whole part of Ho'oponopono practice is that whatever you see bad on the outside in your world, you find it within you. You're not separated. You're not like, those guys are mad and I'm not, You're like, where is the murderer inside me? Where is this inside me? Where is this inside me? And you're transforming it with yourself with accountability. It's, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you is this practice. And as simple as those words are, done authentically, done transformatively, it does. That's a vibration that will change. Accountability is always a part of the path. Asking for forgiveness or saying I'm sorry, and not in like the weird, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Not that way. In the true depth of tears of knowing that you're not going to be forgiven. I'm going to say that again. A true I'm sorry normally comes and is met with someone who probably won't forgive you. I'm going to tell you a story about why that is. Because we're going to witness it pretty much in a lot of ways. There are times where we mess up, we get accountable, and we're like, and you have another person, you're like, I know your heart, totally, we mend, we go forward. Great. In times of genocide and war and terror and torture and all of these things, whether we have our transformation or not, if we are on the path that upheld that went towards that voted for that, you can't expect someone to be like, oh, you were just, having a day being blind, no worries. It's not going to happen. And so that's why, again, it's a transformative experience for you, a trueness for us, inside, a true aspect. Having said that, your transformation still is valuable. It is still essential. Nothing can heal without being seen in truth, and then being in the choice of love, being the choice. And it is not on what someone else thinks of your journey, okay? It's about your truth in your journey. I can't judge that, nor can you judge mine. But we can help each other be accountable. And there's all sorts of aspects with that. So your spiritual activism is going to be essential to your own ability to transform yourself. And that energy of transformation, that energy of love, that energy of compassion, that energy of truth will permeate throughout. Put my hood back on because I'm cold. That will permeate out. Okay? Is meditating for world peace a bad thing? No, of course it's not. Right? Meditating and having spiritual practices and lighting candles and stuff like that, go for it. Do it. I'm not saying not to. But if you're doing it in place of being actually transformative, being actually active, being actually doing, confronting, you're more or less numbing. So if you're doing anything spiritual to bypass being uncomfortable, or to bypass being held accountable, or to bypass your own, journey, it's kind of, more harm than good. And you will see, especially in our spiritual communities, how much love and light has been sent around, quite literally, to shut up and quiet the voices that are oppressed, the voices that are hurt, the voices that are in need. And if you are doing that to somebody else, you're 100% doing it to yourself. And if it is just because you don't want the bad vibes, it's so angry, everybody's so sad, and that's negative, I'm going to give you something that I had from one of my mentors. I was in my early 20s. I'm in my 40s, I'll get my upper 40s now. I love it, actually. But this woman was in her 60s. I was in my early 20s, and I don't know what my issue was, but I was really in the thick of it, being like, everybody's toxic and everybody has these bad energies, and everything is negative. And sorry, I didn't sound that annoying, but I did. And I will never forget her. She goes, Janae, can you cut the shit? Energy is energy. So if it's negative, if it's whatever you're saying, freaking own it, transform it, and make it good. Stop being whatever this is. She was like, and that was like my first real lesson in agency, in accountability. Now, having said that, right, that doesn't mean that there aren't bad people out there. That doesn't mean that oppression isn't real. That doesn't mean that patriarchy isn't real. That doesn't mean that the outcomes of violence is in your somehow control. No, we can't. But we could do our part of when we're that, when we actually do have agency. Do you see the difference? There are times when we actually don't. Depending on what color skin we have, depending on what economic status we have, depending on so many factors of people around us, depending on the amount of abuse in our worlds, will determine a lot of things that's out of our control. It's not your fault if you were abused. That's a freaking horrible belief system that you create your own reality in every single thing. Horrible. That's an abuse system, just so you know. But then you're like, but wait a minute, but I want to create my reality, and I've seen like the manifestation happen. Yes, both things can be true at the same time. Okay? And that's kind of where I want to get us into spiritual activism, of understanding why it's a little more complicated than you think. And this is where your accountability to yourself, that's true spiritual activism. Knowing when you do have agency. Knowing when you do have choice. Knowing that in all of that, there is a certain amount of choice, but also in all of that, there's a certain amount where you can't own someone else's gross. You can't heal somebody else's peace. You can't will it, because they have agency too. Which, okay. So I want to give you some practical things that you can do with the understanding that you do stand up to the oppressed. You do absolutely 100% do not justify violence. I'm just going to put that there. You do need to be in a place of understanding of no harm. And you also need to be in a place of discernment of that. So if you're going to take single thing and be like, and not understand that everything has a complexity layer, then, you know, it's kind of hard to have these conversations. So taking all of that as a foundation, that you're either at the point where you've been silent this whole time and you have not yet actively said no to oppression, to hatred, to that. And if that's the case, if you're in that place, that's where you have to start. You actually outwardly have to say no to it. You can't hide behind the curtain. It's not going to happen. It can't, because it means you're not dealing with something. Okay? It might mean that you're in a place of real abuse, and there's stuff that needs to happen, and your safety needs to happen. Or, you know, there's a place where you have to realize that your place of abuse, you're not by yourself. And so number one is, it actually has to not be hidden, your voice against oppression, against all things that are hurt, harm, and violent. Okay, so that's number one. So I'm gonna then move on to, assuming that many of you have already done that, because, well, probably wouldn't be, you know, connected to me. I'm pretty vocal if you haven't found out that yet. So the second thing that I want you to do, with the assumption that you're in it, okay, is every day salt. Okay, salt baths, rub salt in your hands. Why? Because when you're intuitive, when you're in activism, when you're in this empathetic, it's really important to not just get knocked around all the time. Your center is really important, and your power is so effective when you can cleanse. So cleansing rituals for you is going to be really, really important. There's all sorts of things. And when I do cleansing rituals, I look for more metaphysical aspects, right? Let's talk about the metaphysics of water. Let's talk about the metaphysics of elements. And again, if you're somebody who is in a specific faith, prayer into that specific faith. In this space, there is not one way, okay? And if you're in that space of that there's one way, or that this is good and this is evil, then again, I'm probably not the person you need at the moment. Because in our space, there's more than one way, because it does not matter your title, it matters who you are. It does not matter your appearance, it matters what you are. It does not matter, you know, what you know, I can read just about any scripture and find good in it, because that's what I seek, right? While somebody can read the same thing and find harm and evil in it, it's because that's what they seek. It's about your reflection and being honest with that, okay? So whatever it is that works for you. I am a prayer. That is something that I am very, very connected to. So I do use prayer. I also am really connected to the elements and nature. So for me, especially the more I garden and the more I do things like that, earth, water, air, all of like kind of just in a way, just like we nurture a seed with nutrients, water, sunlight. I really, really take that as me, that I'm a part of that natural world, and not separate from it. So for me, that's really powerful. It's a powerful cleansing. It's a powerful reminder. So just your spiritual activism, the more you do out, the more you have to do in, okay? Always. The second aspect is your imagination, your visioning, and your attention to creating in your own mind's eye places and things that are good, that are safe. The reality is, part of the reason why we kind of get stuck in loops is because when we are only focused in the growth, in the horror, when we're only focused in the pretend good, okay, we don't ever make a pathway to where we actually want to go. Like, what do we want to do? What kind of environment? What does that look like? And not in, again, not in a way to bypass the reality or what's going on, but as a way we cannot get where we don't know we're going. And it doesn't mean that what we're imagining comes to fruition to, hopefully, I love this, this or something better, this something more. I personally believe that we can't even fathom what love, light, safety really is, because we've just never experienced it. So it's really important to, for me, like in my prayers and my ideas, to say, I know I might not know what this is, but I believe it to be true. I believe communities of safety are possible. I believe that I have the ability to transform and be a part of something in which keeps one another in a place of such connection and divine honor. And I know that I have never truly experienced that before, so I'm willing, I'm open, and I'm aware that that is possible, right? The possibility is so huge. Then the next best spiritual activism piece, and it is probably for me one of the deepest, is true witness. Something cannot be healed unless it's affirmed and seen and has true witness so that it can heal. Until then, it will scream. It will, and I'll just give you an example. How many times, just think of one thing that you have been wrongly judged of, okay? Or someone did something that really, it just wasn't right. It wasn't who you were judged that way, or you just know. And no matter how much, like, you've left that relationship, no matter how much work you've done on the inner side, it still gets you. And it kind of does until, and maybe you've had this experience, maybe you haven't, where someone goes, that wasn't right. That really wasn't right. You were wrongly accused. You were wrongly judged. And it's like, it's weird, but there is this like of being witnessed, of being seen. I've had several different instances in my life, not many, but I will never, of like where something had taken 10 years for the truth to come to light. And even in all that time, wasn't like I didn't do what was necessary to be safe. I didn't do what was necessary to leave. I didn't do what was necessary, right? But all that time, to be honest with you, I kind of just, did what I could. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, something came out to the instance and the truth came out. And it was like, God. There's a great story about Inanna, I'll tell you another time, an ancient goddess that's kind of like the root of Judaism, and then the Christian, Abrahamic religions, like pre-Abrahamic religions, but kind of the basis that talks about this. So true witness is really, really powerful. That's why, honestly, people on the streets making, literally taking videos and saying, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is truth. That's a very huge, very like visual spiritual activism. So how do you do it in the spiritual sense too? Well, that is spiritual activism, number one. But maybe you're not, maybe you can't be there. Maybe there's all sorts of, things, or, every day we can't, you have kids, you have this, but every day you could do this. And it is to quite literally meditate on and envision, say, I'm standing witness to names unknown, that they are human, that I am standing witness to you who is human, who does not deserve the horrors that you are experiencing. I stand witness to you energetically feeling me. I give you your humanity, you give me my humanity. We give each other humanity. We give each other love. I stand witness to you. I may not know your particular name, but I know your essence and your truth. And you can do that every day. And you can be very specific, to be honest with you. For me, I cannot, it pains my soul to think of children in particular in those cages. So I will summon all my mama power that I possibly can to say, hey, you are not alone. You are strong. We will get through this. I see you. I see you. I will find you. We will find you. I see you. Do not give up. Do not give up. You have a name. You have a soul. You are important. That is a spiritual activism every single one of us can do, because the reality is most likely you're probably not giving them their humanity. Because it's so horrible, because it's so much to really kind of grasp, it's easier just to be like, what's going on is really, really bad, but I don't really want to see how big it is. When you start to give people their humanity, you quite literally, the energy is huge. So that's my spiritual activism for today. We're almost at 30 minutes and I want to keep it at that. And, keep going and know that, well, you probably always wanted purpose in your life and said, what is my purpose? Well, welcome. Welcome. Your purpose is to love. Your purpose is not what you do, but who you are. And be who you are to your greatest ability. And choose. Choose transformation. Choose truth. Choose cooperation. I love you. Bye.